I would like to introduce our speaker for the month, Wendy Behrend. Did I get that right, Wendy?
I'm unmuting. Okay, yeah.
So welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. I would like to get my face off of the screen as soon as possible. So let me share my screen. Host disabled, participant share screening.
Oh, sorry. You're good now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Is it working yet?
It should be, yes. It's set for, yeah, it should be working right now.
So, whoops. Do you see a PowerPoint?
Not
No.
yet.
At the bottom of the Zoom of all the faces, it says share screen with a green button. That's the one you should hit.
Yeah. It's having me do all these permissions. So
Oh, yeah.
I apologize.
No, we're looking forward to it.
I wish I had someone standing behind me to make this go faster. I'm sorry.
Technical problems happen. We've all had them.
Okay. I'll hit share screen again and I'll just tell you what it's. Oh, now it looks different this time. So
There you go.
I rule the technology. Okay, that's a huge victory for me now that my stress has escalated through the roof. Where's my keynote? There. Play. How's that look?
That looks good.
That's marvelous.
Great. Everybody, let's cross our fingers and hope this works now. Thanks for being so patient. My name's Wendy. I'm in Portland, and I promised our host that I would try not to swear. It's something that I tend to do, but I apologize in advance if any blue color slips out. And then I'll quickly mention that one of the many ways that I am a non-traditional Cartoonist Northwest speaker is that I've got problems with talking, thinking, and memory. I have been chronically ill for over 25 years. And so I might start having trouble talking mid-presentation, and don't panic. Anyone who decides to make jokes will be my favorite person. Just if you want to wait, and please don't leave until I recover. I will recover. Oh, it's starting already. I will recover pretty quickly if I get a chance to just rest for a second. So if somebody wants to pipe in and, I don't know, comment on something on the screen or something, we should be okay. Just don't panic. I won't be panicking. Okay.
I have
So
to ask if you're using a font or if that's hand lettering.
I hunted down a font that is very close to my own hand lettering. That's how big of a geek I am.
No, it's beautiful.
I found a lot of free handwritten comic fonts that I'm really enamored with, and maybe later I can tell you where to find them. But I like the ones that have variation in the letters to where you can where you can't notice right away that all the S's are exactly the same. So I did not go into that level of detail for you guys. I apologize, but this is really similar to my handwriting. You'll probably see that in a little bit.
Believe me, we are very interested in hand lettering and fonts and what people do with them. So this is certainly something that would interest us. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the cartoon you did. I think that's wild.
Thank you. That happens to be one of the first things I ever drew since I started allowing myself to draw. And so that goes to my next talking point, which is I've only been learning how to draw for a year and a half. And I wish I could subtract all the time in that year and a half that I've been incapacitated and laying on my back, not able to draw, because I think I'd be able to say more accurately, I've been learning to draw for about a half a year. So that's another reason, another way that I'm extremely different from most of the speakers that you have here is that I'm still in the middle of learning. And I drew this picture. Once I decided that I wanted to do a memoir, I realized to my horror that I'd have to draw myself. And so I thought I would try, and this is what happened. And I love this picture, and I've been using it. I feel a lot of emotion around this silly, simple picture because it's one of the first things that came out of me. So thank you for saying that.
Well, if you've only been drawing for 6 months, you put everybody else to shame, because that's got a lot of feeling in it that I could never do if I drew for 20 years. So
wow.
That's really good.
Thank you. Opinion. Well, I've got a lot of pent up feeling. I got a lot of pent up stuff going on with me. I've had a very insane life. And I want to talk about it because I think it can be pretty funny. So the reason why I've only been drawing is because I had a severe psychological block against drawing. And what I mean by that is it wasn't creative block. I am a very creative person in all different parts of my life, but my body would physically not allow me to even doodle. And I wouldn't let myself look at comics. I've never been to a comics convention. There was something life-threatening attached to drawing pictures that I am still investigating. I still have a lot of repressed memories. And so to sum up this first page, I started drawing because I started having an incredibly hard time talking. My speaking symptoms started to, my speech started to deteriorate rapidly a year and a half ago. And I thought, I'm going to be shut inside myself with no way to communicate. I've got to learn to draw. Now is my time to get over this block and save my voice. So what a heavy first slide. Let's go to the next one. Come on, work. Give it one more second. No, I'll do it this way. No, it won't advance. I refuse to stay on this. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
So what on earth am I doing in here with you guys who all know what you're doing? We can blame Donna. Let's all blame Donna.
Blame Donna.
It's her fault. She's being incredibly inclusive and gracious for asking me here in here with you. I'm trained as a researcher, so once Donna asked me to join you, I went and stalked Donna and started looking up everything about her. And I feel like I learned, I don't know Donna, but I feel like I learned a lot about her when I stumbled across her strip called Can't, and I took a couple screenshots of my favorite moments here. The reason I'm bringing Donna into this is because I am a recluse. Disability has kept me distant from a lot of communities. And I have felt like a, you know, an alienated weirdo, and it was amazing to me to read her strip talking as an artist about the moments that she was told can't in different situations, but especially around drawing, and then also feeling that she was too weird for weird spaces, like a group of science fiction people. I suddenly felt like I very much wanted to inhabit a space with Donna. And so when I was reading her strip, I suddenly, looking at her images, I uncovered a repressed memory of hiding my own drawings when I was a child. And I hadn't had access to that until I saw Donna's strip. And my brain's not letting me remember what I was drawing or where I hid it, but I remembered that, and that was such a gift. And so I reached out to Donna to thank her for the strip. And if you haven't seen it, please go find it. I'm sure she'll help us find it later. But I bring it up because even being exposed to her art helped me in my project of trying to regain my own memories. It was the interaction with her personal comics and her story that helped me feel better about coming here and sharing, and helped me get a little piece of my biography back. So I have a little note at the bottom that says, by the way, I am insane about the totally socially unacceptable alphabet. Oh my gosh, I love that. I hope if you haven't seen that yet, please go find that. Okay, great. This is moving along. I promise you these aren't all pictures of other people's stuff, but we got to get through these first few slides. As a researcher, I went and I tried to watch all of the speaker videos, and I scared the crap out of myself because everyone has all these, they have encyclopedic knowledge, 30 years in the business, Eisner Awards, ink pots, and I was flipping out. And luckily, a Facebook friend posted this comic with the words from Jesse Ham. Somewhere out there are people who need to hear a story you are uniquely able to tell. Art by others, even better art, won't do, only yours. And I've been looking at this every day for a month to get myself okay to be in here, because I kept thinking, what on earth do I have to say? I don't have any new, I have no art tips. There's nothing possible that I could show you that's fascinating unless I go with the alien anomaly angle, which is what does it look like if an alien dropped onto Earth and decided that day they wanted to do comics, or someone raised like a veal is let out of her crate and suddenly wants to do comics without comics experience, without the history of allowing herself exposure. So hopefully this that angle is of some kind of interest. One last outside look before we go into me. A lot of my psychological block is still a mystery to me. I don't understand why it was so strong, what made it happen. And I was very self-conscious about trying to find other artists who got started drawing as late as me. And I've had a very, very hard time. I found artists who got their big break late, but almost everyone that I read their bios, they're like, I started drawing when I was 3. And yet I still really resonated with Emil Ferris, because she entered into comics specifically at age 55. She had prevented herself from drawing comics because of something traumatic that happened to her. And she also was extremely ill and had to tie a pen to her hand and teach herself how to draw at an older age. And so I was very excited to see her story in Drawing Power. And it this is all of the psychological maneuvering I had to go to get myself ready to talk with you guys about me. So here's the part where the speaker's supposed to wow you with their resume, but I don't have any comics experience. And even though drawing was not allowed in my life, I was always creative. And my entire life, I've been obsessed with semiotics, the study of signs, and also the psychology of symbols. And that has always been of great interest to me. I was a makeup artist for years. I've played in a couple bands. I was a coordinator for the Arizona International Film Festival, and I planned on getting my PhD in what's called media theory, which is another way to talk about signs and semiotics. It's not about it's not about like the news. It's about mediality. How does a system of signs work between other people? So I got a couple degrees. My master's was actually from the Pacific Northwest College of Art, and I did not allow myself to take any art classes while I was there because it's just not allowed. But my master's is in critical theory and creative research. Every one of my colleagues in the program was an artist except for me, and I had done filmmaking. But it was about engaging in critical theory, but bringing into creative practice. And I'd like to think that that's sort of what I'm getting to do now. I feel like I've ended up using my master's degree in a crazy way. Okay, so you'll see sticky notes. Remember to explain that you hate drawing yourself and you must force practicing self-portrait. So I tried to draw myself in a few different people's styles. I don't know if they're so bad that they're not recognizable, but there's Alison Bechtel on the top and R. Crumb, and I will skip over those. We'll go to the next one. So my symptoms started over 25 years ago. The things that make it hard for me to work on drawing are that I have chronic brain inflammation, nerve and bone pain. I have trouble. I hope I don't have to explain executive functioning, but it's different higher levels of organizational thinking. I have chronic migraines. I've been diagnosed with hypersomnia, which is not quite narcolepsy, but things will make me pass out if I'm working too hard, even if I'm reading too much. I have profound memory loss in different areas. I'm missing almost all of my childhood. And some of that I think has to do with Lyme, and some of it definitely has to do with trauma. So multiple fun things, neat little Venn diagram of fun. And as I said before, the word finding in my aphasia really started to get frightening a couple of years ago. And I'm doing so great right now from the work I've done. It might not seem like I have trouble speaking. I have to think a lot about what I'm saying. But I'm doing a lot better than I was. Some days still I can't talk at all, but medicine really helps. So when I started to really worry about communicating, I got all these books together to try to put together a plan. I didn't have access to therapy, so I started looking at how could I be my own therapist? How could I do physical therapy for the damage? MRIs show that I have damage to, oh no, I can't remember the name of the part of my brain from all my migraines and from the Lyme disease. Okay, don't lose track of, hold on a second.
You're doing great. You're doing just great.
No.
Amazing, amazing. And by the way, we are astounded at your background and the work you've put in. And there is something called imposter syndrome, in which a really great person thinks they're a fake. And I think you have a case of it, because you've been in a band, you've got degrees. I mean, come on, girl, you're learning to draw, you're doing all this self therapy. We're astounded. Keep it up.
Thank you. And thank you for chiming in. That gave me enough time to come back. All right. So I hatched a plan. It took a few months of passing out and having people read these books to me, but I tried to figure out what could I possibly do. And I not only chose to draw and felt like art therapy could help me with these multiple things, but I chose comics because I feel like the comic who's doing every part of the process is the modern Renaissance person. They're a polymath. There are so many different skills that I didn't have, that I knew I would have to tackle, that I wanted to make the rehabilitation program as rigorous for myself as possible, so that it would be like cognitive weightlifting. I planned on kicking my own butt in the hopes that I would start to regain some functionality. I drew this picture right after Donna asked me to come in here with you guys, because Carrie Fisher talks on the outside the way I talk on the inside. And part of what's been shoved down in me is my comic voice, my ability to crack wise. And so that secretly to myself was another reason to choose comics. I wanted some kind of excuse or avenue, or what's the word, escape hatch. I wanted some way to let my sense of humor back out. It's really repressed and buried. And so I drew Carrie as like a signpost for myself.
Wait a minute, you drew that?
Yeah, I'll try to
You
go
drew
back.
Carrie.
Yeah,
That's astounding. That's amazing.
thank
I
you.
agree. It's
It is
wonderful.
incredible. That's truly
Totally.
a professional piece of art.
Thank you.
If you've only been doing this 6 months, the rest of us are in big trouble.
Hey, look who we're launching. We're going to take credit for you, girl.
Okay, so did I put a note on this one? I was worried I'd forget why this one was here, but I think it's just an example of some early attempts of, I still don't have I understand the visual language of storytelling on an intimate level at a remove. I can talk about film. I don't have it embodied. I haven't drawn images out of myself yet. And so these are my first attempts to try to record what my experience of being disabled is like. And I look forward to having more of a visual vocabulary to be able to make things clearer than this. So my plan to beat my block was to announce to everyone in my life that I now have a job, because I haven't been able to work for a very long time. And my job is my Patreon project. And from that moment, 8 hours a day or a half an hour a day, whatever I was able to do every day, I would be teaching myself how to draw. And it would be with a long-term goal of creating graphic memoir. I imagined I'd do it slowly over time, but I made it clear that that meant that I would need to learn to draw, to ink, to color. I need to learn how to write stories. I need to learn graphic design, and probably have to learn how to self-publish. And I did it within the Patreon because of my thinking problems. I needed a structure. I needed a place where everything would be. I needed there to be a clock. I knew that there would be a month where things would sort of start over. And I needed the accountability. I wanted to feel like I wasn't doing this all by myself, like I was drowning out in the middle of a lake. I wanted there to be some sort of lighthouse. And if only 2 people showed up, I would be trying to draw for me, but then show it to them and practice articulating to them what I was learning. And that would help me with my verbal rehab, with my language skills, making audio recordings for them and so on. It would be an excuse for me to start researching my past that I can't remember, and within the confines of the project.
This is, well, Patreon, as I pointed out to people, the people paying attention to you, following you, it's like having a family that, they depend on you, and you got to get your work done. And it is very, very, very supportive and keeps you going. And you're doing, like I say, you're doing a great job. You're just going right into this stuff. You're using these things as tools like they're meant to be. And this is exactly what everybody needs to do. And yes, you will probably have to learn self-publishing. I'll help you with that one.
Thanks again for jumping in. I needed that. So I knew that I was being perverse with having a Patreon, because I knew that Patreon was for people that already had content to offer. Oh. And what I was offering was my content was my process and my journey. And seeing if anyone was just curious as to how I would pull this off. And I do wax poetic, and my theory background, my research background comes out every once in a while, but luckily my patrons are very kind to me about that. But I also like to feel that I'm offering for my patrons examples of how to draw something up out of yourself, even when you're sure you can't do it. I try to include quotes that are inspirational to me, and just try to show them the importance of creativity for themselves in different ways. And so right now, that is what I offer my patrons. Another side part of the project is weirdly a podcast, especially since I've been having so many talking problems, but I wanted specifically to be using my voice unapologetically and explain to the listeners that I would have problems, and I keep my speaking problems in. And I wanted to use it at first to interview my friends and my family so that I could record from them their memories of me that I don't remember. Oftentimes people will say we did all these things and it doesn't jog memory. So it would be a way to augment, help fill in my life story. But also I have 13 years of voice memos to myself. Desperate voice memos where I'm saying, Wendy, please remember this is important to you. I have a voice memo to myself 8 years ago begging me to learn how to draw so that I could write a graphic memoir after I first saw Alison Bechdel's Are You My Mother? And then I forgot that I ever said that for years. Or my unconscious shoved that way down because that was not allowed. So the podcast part is for, I thought it could be a good way to revisit those voice memos and start to move through them and see what helps fill in my life story. And what I've started to find is that even though I forget things completely over the years, I care about the same things. They keep coming back. I'll make a voice memo and say, Wendy, you just had this amazing idea. Please remember this. And it'll be the 5th or 6th time I've told myself that. What's valuable to me is to hear myself telling myself over and over these certain things that I need to pay close attention to. So quickly get past this. I imagined the podcast would be a way to have strangers aware of my project in the Patreon, because, so far I'm very sequestered, or I don't know the right word, especially because of COVID. I have to avoid being indoors with other unmasked people. I don't have a lot of networking capabilities. So I imagined the podcast was a way to let strangers know what I'm doing. And if you do ever want to check out any of the podcasts, the one I do highly recommend, I interview my friend David F. Walker, Eisner award-winning comics writer, and he's hilarious on that one. And you don't have to listen to much of me at all.
We need to get him on here as a speaker. Maybe we'll have you suggest it.
Oh yeah, I could. I absolutely will, Donna.
Thank you.
He is very charming. So you might have noticed the crazy title of my Patreon, which is Monstrorum Historia. I realize it's not an easy name to call something, but I wanted it to be this linchpin for myself. Monstrorum Historia is Latin for monstrous history. And it's a book from the 1600s that has these amazing drawings of monsters, real, the animals and anomalies and mythical monsters. And I go into quite a bit about why this book is an important framing for my long-term project, but that's an explanation of what that name is all about. So this is a picture of the tiny little room that I have that I've made into my art room. And the table, I found a used drafting table. I shoved it into a closet. And I spend every day in here. And here's some weird pathological behavior. For decades, I would go around and find used art tools, T-frames, light box, and I never used them. And I would put them away in a box. And there was a part of me that desired so badly to have that in my life. I don't want to say I had a block and I wasn't aware of it. I was acutely aware of a needing to draw and not being allowed. And so when I started this project, I had everything I needed. I had bought the table from someone from their basement for $25, and let's see, what else do I say here?
You were preparing the way. You say you've been learning to draw for a year and a half, but you spent many years preparing. So you actually have been doing this for a long time.
I think there was there's parts of me that are buried that were warring it out. One wanted this for me more than anything, and one wasn't going to let it happen. And the one that wanted it, I think, was taking in a lot of information and storing it away along with these supplies. And then I made a note here that I chose to use only physical mediums because I wanted an embodied rehab tied to muscle memory. I'm not sure if this note makes sense. I can explain this more later, but I felt like it was really important if I was dealing with a physical malady and psychological trauma that I needed to feel the drag of a nib pen. I needed to smell the ink. I needed to get it on my hands. And I needed to instill a type of muscle memory for how how do I explain this? How does somebody learn something when they have memory problems? I felt convinced that if I made my body do something that was engaging all of my senses, that day to day I would forget, but my body would remember. And I've been proven right, and I'll talk more about that in a second. I'm running out of time.
I don't know. We may be here longer because this is absolutely fascinating. And I think it's one of the best talks we've ever had.
Oh, thank you. Okay. There are two pieces of evidence left in the world that I ever drew. And it looks like I stopped drawing around age 6. Although our house burned to the ground when I was 6. Wait, that doesn't make sense. There would be things after that. I can't find anything but these things that were kept by my grandma. And I have them now in my art room up on the wall to remind myself that it was okay for me to make images at one point. And then what I'm showing on the right is what happened afterwards, where my hand would constantly be wanting to doodle and draw and would immediately black it completely out, aggressively, almost violently. And I was very aware of this too. It was almost like I was watching my hand do it, making sure that no one could see what I had just started to do. And so I was thinking to myself, how on earth do I get around this thing that feels bigger than myself? It's more in control than my desire. And I saw a video with Michael Caine. Michael Caine was talking about his philosophy for life, and he said, use the difficulty. And he learned about it in improv. If you come up, you're supposed to go through the door and it's locked, use the difficulty, find a table and crawl over the locked door on the set. Something, it's more interesting, it's more hilarious, instead of just stopping and complaining and say you can't get through the door. So please work. So I decided to start with a workbook from Alfonso Dunn where there was no drawing of pictures. I had 30 some years untrained experience with cross hatching is what I told myself. I am an expert, messy cross hatcher. I am just gonna straighten these things out. That's all I'm doing. I'm still crossing it out, but maybe I'm just crossing all in one direction now. Maybe I can slowly turn the paper and make it into a circle. I'm not making a picture. No one's in trouble here. And for, I don't know how long it was, but this was incredibly upsetting and scary and not enjoyable. But I forced myself through these exercises, weeks and weeks of doing things like this, which I feel have, I mean, it's just invaluable to my learning, you know, how to texture and things, but it was the leverage point, or the, I can't
Breakout.
think. So that's how I got things started. And then I also wanted to deal with color. So I purposefully chose inks and watercolors. There was something about the metaphor of knowing that these mediums bleed and shift and are chaotic, that I felt like I needed a medium that was always going to be a little bit out of control, out of my control, that I had to give up control and watch what the ink and the paint wanted to do on the paper. And then I could respond. But that in a way, I had to give in to the situation that I'm in. I had to give in to the situation that I was in, and that there was a way for me to have color and be in conversation with it, but have it be chaotic. One last little hack I tried was I set up a butcher paper roll dispenser on the wall, and you can see beneath it is my drawing from when I was 6. I talked to myself, and this is the theorist in me. I said there was a time when I felt okay to draw, and it was on paper like this. So my body remembers that. I'm gonna draw on paper like this, and I'll be safe in here. And I am not past feeling desperately afraid at times, irrationally afraid, and I walk over and pull the butcher paper out and draw on that, and it works. It helps. So, oh, did I thought I put a note here. Anyway, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry it's taking so long.
It's okay. Hang in there.
I decided to make a curriculum for myself. I didn't believe I could come at this linearly, do one thing until I really got it, and then move on to the next, because day to day, my health radically fluctuates. If I'm having a migraine, I need to be able to, I still want to work when I have a migraine, or I'll never get to do anything. So I have to choose different tasks that I can do while I'm having migraine. And so, for instance, on days when I can barely see, then I test materials, because I don't have any experience with any pens or chalks or anything. So I test all of the different kinds of white pens to see which ones, you know, smear and which ones cover watercolor. And I try all the different nibs and things, and just try to make notes to myself, so that later when I don't have a migraine, I can see what worked and what felt good. And I write down things that are frustrating, but it all comes out in, I have reams of, or piles of test iterations of tools for my worst days. And this is just an example of the basic learning how to draw forms from imagination and from sight. I don't know what that's called right now. I'm sorry. I probably need to rest for a second. I'm gonna stop on inking and rest for a second, because oh my God, I love inking so much. There's something about it. I just am in love with. I can't decide. I don't know yet what will be my go-to tools in the future, because some of these things were inked with brushes, and some with brush pens and some with fine liners and some with nibs. And I love them all. I don't know which I'll end up being best at, but there's something about inking that I can't describe that is, I notice that I choose to do that on a good day. I come in and I'm feeling great and I feel like I can really do something and nothing hurts, and I go right to the ink. Typography is a mess. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying everything.
Oh my God.
I'm looking forward to doing like medieval illustrated letters with people inside and things. I'm not ready yet, but I'm excited to do that type of stuff. And on the days when I'm just above a migraine and I can't do more, I just do Ames guide lettering practice just to try to it just, Sphinx of black quartz, judge my vow over and over again to just get my lettering better, because I'm very invested in hand lettering everything. I know I'm choosing more work for myself, but it's part of regaining control of language that I don't want to farm out to software. I want it coming through my hand. This isn't just an example of a flashback. I gained a memory. I wanted to draw a balloon that was yelling. And I wrote here, I don't always remember what I'm learning. I don't. But I try to cultivate liminal states conducive to flow, where my subconscious can bubble up. I try to get into states where I'm not really thinking and I'm just trying things without thinking, and then my subconscious feeds me. I am remembering so much during this process, and this is just something I remembered that one of my parents used to regularly yell at me, and it seems like it's a terrible thing, but to me that's a gift. It's a gift that I have it again. I know what's been stuck in my head. It's been saying it in my head, but now I can put it in a cartoon, and it's just a drawing here, and it's suddenly I feel like it's been extracted in a way. Okay, so I put this in because this is one of the first things I did where I felt like it came out of me instead of me doing it. I had been trying typography for a long time. I feel like I didn't really know what I was doing or what direction to go in. And one morning I woke up and I felt like, okay, some people do typographical portraits. You should try to figure out how to do one. And I picked Friedrich Nietzsche and I looked up all these of my favorite quotes of his. And this is just my first try at something like that. And I feel embarrassed to say that I love it, but I didn't feel scared the whole time. And it was just a really big breakthrough for me. I enjoyed sneaking in little pictures. Oh, it's 48 minutes. I'll hurry. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're doing fine. Just get your presentation. You'll be fine.
This is just examples of me learning watercolor. I absolutely don't know. I know it takes forever to master it. And I will enjoy every minute of trying to wrestle with watercolor. But what I was thrilled to find out is watercolor pencils and pastels, and the different textures you can get from that. I'm thrilled to be starting to just figure out what those could possibly do in the future. Last October, after my project started, I got in a car accident and I drew the picture on the right about my injuries, and that there was a quote on an audiobook from Stephen King playing when the car hit me. So I drew that, and it felt so satisfying. I felt then like I got a little bit of what was going on in my body outside of me, and the space I was in starting to recover. This is the first time I ever tried drawing anything from a picture, and I was thrilled. I feel like there's something about all the years of my studying film that got in past my barriers, and I liked messing with the different styles, trying for a sort of distorted realism on the building, but then having a very loose style with myself. Felt like a really good balance for me. This is just me geeking out about color theory. I have the word things. Prisms. I try to recreate the light experiments that Newton and Goethe did to see what they're talking about, to help me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have anyone showing me what I should be doing. These are just examples of me trying to understand values, composition. I included the bonfire picture. That's a self-portrait of me gagged, hanging upside down with the red paint from my brush, like dripping like blood. And I don't know how to explain that. To me, that's a funny picture to me, and it's joyous and funny, and my sense of humor is really sick, and I don't know how to let it out. And when I made that picture, it upset a couple of my patrons, and they contacted me and let me know, you should have trigger warnings. Please don't send this in the monthly thing I send to people. And then I suddenly got some courage, and it helped me understand part of my block, in that boy, if they're upset with this picture, oh my God, wait 5 years. What I can't imagine how upsetting the stuff I make might be. But I, instead of retreating, I felt very determined to explain that this is funny and joyous and huge for me to make something that might be upsetting. And so that really helped me to have the patrons there, to have them voice discussed, and then they didn't leave. They didn't leave. That was amazing to me. So I know nothing about anatomy. I decided to approach it through caricature. I feel like I don't want to learn to draw bodies the right way first. I want to pay attention to how they distort, because I feel like my body's very distorted. There's a picture of me right under the anatomy title. I have really big hips. I look like I was drawn in a crazy way. And so I'm interested in drawing in expressionistically, or I mean, we notice certain features, and anyway, this is my entry point. I don't know if I'm messing myself up for later, but I'm coming in through caricature. When I started doing a lot of anatomy, I felt like I wasn't learning. And then this painting one day came pouring out of me. I decided I wanted to draw myself like a homunculus. Homunculus is like the model of the brain that they make to show what our nerve endings pay attention to. And So I made myself with a scooped out but swollen head and a mouth half sewn shut. And the part that was my favorite was my big left hand with the brush in it that is out in front. And again, it feels weird to have affection for a thing that I've drawn, but it too made my patrons very concerned and upset. And I was just thrilled about the colors I threw together, and the texture that doesn't make literal sense on the skin, but makes complete sense to me. And I started thinking about when is weird detail like this appropriate in storytelling. So I feel like the thing that I learned from the most is master studies, though. I feel like I make leaps and bounds in my understanding of things when I'm trying to recreate what someone else has done, and I'm trying to not limit myself to one style. And Charles Burns blows my mind. Oh gosh, I don't know how I don't know how he gets so much ink on the page without it ruining the page. But I also don't, because there are no artists around me, I don't have anyone to look at. I didn't understand that people do hatching with multiple strokes. I thought it was all one perfect stroke that starts fat and ends small every time. And so that's what I was trying to do on all of these. But then I saw a couple of videos of people doing it completely differently. So that's why I am excited for the things like the drink and draw, just to hear other people talking about how they're doing things. Because I don't know. Okay. This is me trying to replicate the way Jeff Lemire's inking is so loose. And to me, there's just this wildness to it that really helps me with my anxiety. And I couldn't have understood anything about it without drawing it. I decided to add a little bit of watercolor, but I'm sure you guys already know how much you learn from seeing the tiny decisions that someone else made. That's some Shannon Wheeler stuff and more Watterson. I want to learn more about landscape from Watterson. And this is a French female artist that I just found, and her colors are fantastic. I decided to try to get my hands on a lot of cartoonist sketchbooks so that I could try drawing things there too, and just seeing what their thinking processes are like. So I copy finished work, but I also copy things from sketchbooks. And I try to track if they're reworking something, how does it change? Perspective, I have all of David Chelsea's books, and this is something, how do I say this? I have without knowing anything about perspective, I know where I want to end up. And I can't explain it, and maybe it'll change as I learn, but I want to have a very subtle curvilinear perspective to things that is a little bit more like the shape of the eye perceives. I want to avoid a perfect photorealistic flatness, because I want there to be an entry that isn't so boxy. I don't know how else to say that. when I can't draw, I read. I try to get myself I try to get more comics history into my brain, and when I can't read, my roommate reads to me, and I don't curtail comics history to just the United States and just the early 19th and 20th century. I'm looking at medieval art and old English emblems, and I'm just really interested in our combining of text and symbolism that I think we sometimes dismiss the humor that goes back a long time. So this is also one of my favorite parts of the day, is if I get to just look back at what other people have done. This is just a picture of some books that, with my limited knowledge and exposure, this so far, I feel excited by these books and what they are doing with comic form. The Nick Susanis Unflattening, I believe his is the first graphic work to be used for a PhD dissertation. And then the strip down in the corner is my favorite strip of all time. Ace Hole Midget Detective from I think it's the late 70s, from Art Spiegelman. There's so much playing with form in that comic. I can talk more about that some other time. I read a lot of comic theory. Pardon me? Okay, I'll just pass over this, but as my master's training in theory, I'm very interested in theory. Theory doesn't help me draw though. And these books here are going to help me make the strips. And I feel like we spent a lot of time on the drawing without looking at many strips. And that's because for some reason, I haven't been able to do it yet. I'm still trying to figure out why. I think the first comic, anything I made that could be called a comic, is this, which is top view down on my own head with the part of me that I want to kill off and the part that I want to wake up. This is started with a drawing exercise where I was just learning how to use icons, and you're supposed to draw a simple graph of how do you make coffee. And I thought it would be funny to show how to make coffee. And so siphon coffee has like 20 steps and it's insane. And I drew it all, and the more ridiculous it got, the harder it got to follow the chart, the more funny it was to me. And a friend saw it and he put it into the Seattle Star Sunday Comics section. So I guess that's the first thing I've had published. A friend of mine, Jake Goldsmith, is the blonde in the drawing. He was doing a think piece about philosopher Raymond Aron, and he asked me if I would draw Raymond Aron. So I drew them together, and that also sort of just came pouring out of me. I loved doing this, and he submitted it with his piece to the literary arts magazine, The Exacting Clam, and they said they're going to publish it with his piece, and they're considering making it the cover. And I don't know yet what they're gonna do, but so that might be the first real thing I have on paper somewhere without having tried to do that. Oh my gosh, I've talked for an hour. Okay, I'll plow through this. my next challenge is what I'm calling Auto by August. I'm trying to create a drawing challenge for August where you would draw something autobiographical every day, but I have to figure out the prompts. And then my memoir, whenever it happens, is going to be called The Monster at the End of This Book, after the framing device of this Sesame Street book. I have very bad memories of my mother reading this book to me, and yet this book has stayed very important because I acknowledge that it's one of the first books I noticed was meta. It was very aware of itself as a book, and the drawing of the frayed pages and the trying to keep you from turning the pages had a very strong effect on me. So whatever I end up making later is going to be called that. What I write at the bottom: autobiography as Rashomon or Memento, with an unreliable narrator, aphasia, memory, alienation, self-loathing, repression, illness, intergenerational silences, myth and othering. Who is it that's doing the drawing and the living? I think it's interesting to come at autobiography without your own memories. Me drawing myself doing things that other people remember is an interesting concept to me. This is the first real comic page that I'm trying to draw. I can't seem to get the pictures out of me yet, but it's about something that happened to me in a mental ward. And this is just a note to myself saying later, if I don't know what to draw, I have years of notes and I'll have years of drawings, and I could play a game of Exquisite Corpse where I just try to put the things together and make something out of it. This is just a summary page if I didn't make any sense of how I think comics are saving me. I think I hope I was clear with all of this, my patrons and the Patreon project are helping me greatly with having a purpose and having goals and having support and making improvements in my condition. That's the end.
Good.
Excellent. Bill, I'm making a suggestion now because I think we're watching the introduction of a major new comics artist here. You might want to start editing this for one of the film festivals.
Oh, definitely.